Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are joining us from today. We are so very glad that you are here. Welcome to today's training course preview brought to you by the CPS HR Consulting Training Center. This session is designed to give you a brief look inside one of our upcoming courses, including key topics, practical takeaways, and how this training can support your work in the public sector. Today, we are previewing How You Show Up Matters, Communication That Connects and Influences, presented by CPS HR training instructor Lisa Kjellstrom. We've got a great session ahead, but before we jump in, of course, here are a few quick housekeeping notes. Today's webinar is being recorded and you will receive a follow-up email with the recording link. Everyone is in listen-only mode to help keep our audio crystal clear, and we encourage you to use the chat to connect and share ideas throughout the session with one another. If you have any questions for our speaker, please hold them until the end where you will be prompted to drop them into the comments and we will answer as many as we can, time permitting. Now, without further delay, I'm going to hand it over to Lisa. Take it away.
Thanks so much, Marissa. Thank you, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. Love seeing all the locations coming in. Lots of California, unsurprisingly. I bet you're having better sunshine than I am here in Columbus, Ohio, where it is threatening thunderstorms again. I am Lisa Kjellstrom. I am so excited to spend the next 45 minutes with all of you, landing us on an important topic. How you show up matters. So communication, key skill for us in our leadership role. How do we ensure that we use it powerfully to connect and to influence? So we're going to dive into a little bit today. And then as Marissa said, we'll lean into that even further in the 2.5-hour course coming up in August. So what do we get into today? We show up every day as a leader, right? We show up in the spaces and places. We show up for our people. We show up for our teams. And of course, we also show up as a human. We're not just showing up in professional settings. We're showing up in personal settings, in our communities, in our families, in our faith-based areas, in our sports. We show up a lot, all day, every day. And how we arrive matters, especially when it comes to leadership. How we show up in the places where we lead matters. Today, we're going to spend some time strengthening your ability to communicate with clarity and with influence by improving how you show up as a leader to the people, to the teams, to the work that you do. And then more on that next time. We're going to build on this story as we connect in August. We will talk through not just how you show up, which we will land in today, but we're going to build on that. We'll spend time today understanding our nervous system, how we show up, how our energy really matters in the containers that we hold as leaders. And then next time we'll pick that up and we'll look at how do you deliver messages that land? How do you make them stick? Yes, that will lean into your visual, your verbal, your vocal, but we'll also talk about your ability to tell stories and to share data that sticks with your audience, that lands, that they remember, and that moves them to action. Today, my promise to you is that you are going to walk away with our time together with a nugget or two, with a framework on how to prep for real high stakes conversations that you have coming up in the next couple of weeks. How does that sound? Love to see some emojis, pluses, minuses, pop in the chat. Are we feeling good? Got a lot of energy and ready to dive into our time together? Love it. Thanks, Elaine. Appreciate it. Excited, Daniel. Love it. Woohoo. Yeah, that Friday Eve energy. I am feeling it. Great. My name is Lisa Kjellstrom. I am what I lovingly call a honeybee of leadership development. That means that I have the great and distinct privilege of helping many leaders, such as yourselves. I've done that for many years in many countries. I partner with a couple of different organizations, which is where that honeybee sense of self comes into play. Because I kind of fly around, I land at these organizations, I work with leaders, and then I take that wisdom and I fly my honeybee self elsewhere. And I hope that there's kind of a natural cross pollination of wisdom that comes from the way that I work. So, a couple of folks that I partner with Harvard University. There we deliver global programs at scale, so long term learning journeys for executives just like you. I also partner with Decker Communications. And there we lean into those visuals, the verbals, the vocals. How are you showing up? How is your energy being perceived by others in the room? How can you use tone of voice, inflection? How can you bring your hands into the conversation to help deliver and land your message with impact? I also partner with the Young Presidents Organization, and that's about 38,000 CEOs worldwide, give or take, in many, many countries. And there I serve as a coach, I serve as a guide, and I hold space with leaders that hold a lot in the world. And that really can affect how you show up. All that we do, all that we navigate, the complexity, the scale, the VUCA environments that each one of us know very well, especially in the public sector, can affect your energy and it can affect how you show up and how you're able to lead. So I get into that a little bit of with YPO and with the executives I work with there. There's a couple of other organizations on there. Sometimes I fly my honeybee self over to the UK, and there I work with an organization that actually uses Shakespeare as the backdrop for leadership development. So the power of story of Shakespeare. Fascinating work. I promise you I will not break into the Merchant of Venice or Hamlet anytime soon. And of course, I work here at CPS HR as a trainer. So I want to talk a little bit about today's time. In all the walks of life we have in leadership, and certainly in the time that I get to witness leaders, I notice consistently that something is happening right now. It's not really showing up in quarterly reports. It's not just about burnout. It's not even hybrid work or AI. We are navigating emotional complexity at a scale we've never seen before. There's uncertainty, global instability, disconnection, distrust, information overload bombarding us all day, every day. The dominant frequency right now isn't anger, it's fatigue. Because when a nervous system is tired for long enough, it doesn't just break loudly, it hardens, it numbs. So the question for us as leaders isn't how do I eliminate difficult emotions for myself, for my team? How do I just get them out of the way? They're there. The question we must ask ourselves is how can I build capacity to hold the complex emotions? And that's where Glennon Doyle comes in. Glennon, for those of you that don't know, author, speaker, podcaster, she wrote the book Untamed, and she talks about us as humans kind of being floating buckets in the ocean. There's a lot that we all hold and carry. And so we, as leaders, set the tone for the culture, for the spaces, for the places. We are the containers. We are the buckets. We need to show up well. We need to come ready to play every single day. No different than an athlete. They come ready to play to the games. They train, they hydrate, they enter the arena, and they know this is their time to be on. We must think of ourselves in that same way. Our body is an instrument, our body is the bucket, and we must make sure that we are resourced to be able to show up full and not depleted in terms of our energy. Ultimately, we own inclusivity and belonging, right? That is our role. So we need to learn how to be resourced. And if we're not, if we feel like our bucket isn't full enough, if we feel like our bucket is too small, it is on us to take charge. It is on us to figure out how to fill that bucket, how to expand it for all that this world is asking us to hold. Because leadership is not just about being in charge. Leadership is about taking care of those in your charge. Simon Sinek, love Simon Sinek. I'm sure many of us know him. This quote just lands at the heart of this work. Leadership is not about being in charge. Leadership is about taking care of those in your charge. And of course, that includes self. Because how you show up matters. I will keep saying that time and time again in our time together, but it is true. How we show up as a leader matters to the people around us. It matters to the work. It matters to the bottom line. It matters to the ROI. It matters the organizational shifts, the dynamics, how we come ready to play, ready to perform, bringing our athlete mindset to the fore is really important work. So this webinar is going to focus on just that, how leaders can cultivate what I call a steady center. We oftentimes feel like we hold so much on our shoulders. We hold the weight of the world up here. And what if we thought about it differently? What if we stepped out of having to hold all of it so heavily and instead occupied the space of the steady center within ourselves, within our work? Because ambiguity is going to continue to be there. Pressure is going to continue to be high. Emotional load and uncertainty is going to continue to be shared, not just within ourselves, but across our teams, across our organization. How can we shift from holding that weight in our shoulders to instead occupying this steady center? And I would argue we do that by grounding our nervous system. Once we have a grounded nervous system, we can show up with clarity. We can show up with humanity. We can make others feel seen, heard, and feel a deep sense of belonging. So let's begin. Let's begin by doing some of this work together. We need to put on our own oxygen masks first. That's key. We have to fill up our own bucket before we can pour from it into another. We can't hold space if your nervous system is constantly overstimulated and overregulated. Real resilience, of course, is not bouncing back from the difficult. Resilience is cultivating and increasing our capacity to hold the difficult. It's the ability to feel something difficult and still move forward, not around it. The only way is through. So what does that look like? I'm going to pop up a poll in just a second, but I am super curious. This is an AI assisted image, but it could have been my own calendar if I'm being completely honest. I'm going to ask us all in just a moment to scan a QR code, but I'm going to leave this visual up while I talk through. And the question I will ask us to answer in just a moment is, how familiar does this look? If I were to ask you to pull up your calendar for the last 30 days and to put on an anthropologist hat, to look at it objectively, what would you notice about the patterns that dominate? Are you seeing some of this in your own life? Meetings stacked back to back, no real margin, no opportunity for integration, for reflection. Is there empty space? Do you build in time to pause? And if you were that anthropologist and someone was to infer your values as a leader, your mission, your vision, your why, or why you show up to do the work you did, what would they conclude if they were just looking at those meeting titles? if they were just looking at how you spent your finite resource of time? It's an interesting question. Shannon, yes, are an anthropologist, so you know, right? We're doing this kind of participant, observer, inside out reflection here and a self study, thinking about your own calendar, thinking about the patterns, framing it such that your calendar is really a moral document. It reveals what you protect, it reveals what you prioritize, it reveals what you permit. And my deeper question underneath all of this is, are you running your calendar or is your calendar running you? I'm going to pop up this Slido. Please do take a moment, take out any kind of mobile device here, scan and complete the Slido. And if you have any trouble at all getting your way to that Slido poll, just pop into chat. How familiar does that calendar graphic look? Teams, Slack, WebEx, blocked time for heads down that sometimes you get pulled into other meetings, other agendas, other deliverables, timelines, competing timelines. There's a lot that we all live in every day, just managing the complexity of our calendar. See, some of us are taking the poll, so I'm gonna give it a couple more minutes here. Cindy, thank you. Familiar. As we're taking it, I'll share some Harvard research around this that really blows my mind. Harvard found in a recent study that the adult mind wanders 47% of the time. The adult mind wanders 47% of the time. I'm not a statistician, so I'm going to just kind of round it to a cool 50%. Half the time, our mind is somewhere else. That wandering is strongly associated with lower happiness because being out of presence, thinking about all those competing timelines, all those competing tracks, all those competing meetings when you're sitting in one actually decreases our happiness over time. Tristan, are you a statistician? Was that what the hands up was for? If so, please forgive me. I did. I had rounded that one up. Okay, I'll come back to our poll here. Oh, my mind wanders. Yes, absolutely. Owned for sure. I am the very same way. So taking a look at our poll, yeah, so we've got mine is similar, but more spacious is actually the top ranked item here, which is fantastic. Pretty close to it, familiar. WebEx, Slack, Teams, emails, lots of stolen focus time. And then not familiar, I don't have a lot on my calendar day to day. That's really interesting too, because that leads us to a different question, which is how are you filling your time and how are you making it meaningful? In that, when you invest time in specific projects, if you're not kind of blocking that out on the calendar, how do you really know how to be able to shift focus and prioritize? So very interesting to see the sway here. I'm not in management. Yeah, I get that. I get that. And yet, Christina, to that point, when we talk about leadership here and when we talk about showing up in ways that matter, it's not just about management. It's not about managing a project. It's leadership of self. And like we talked about at the beginning, you're a leader in your community, you're a leader in your family, you're a leader of self, you're a leader in the work you do, in the projects you take on. Even if you don't lead people, we all can step into that leadership capacity within ourselves. So I see a lot of neutral, mine is similar, but more spacious, and then familiar, which is fantastic. I really commend ownership of calendars here within this group. That is exciting to see. So when I ask that deeper question, are you running your calendar or is it running you? It sounds like we have a group and we've got just give or take 100 on the line. It sounds like we have a group of quite thoughtful individuals that are really mindful of their finite resource of time. And we're not letting the clutter, the distraction, the pulled focus, the stolen time really affect us too negatively, which is fantastic because that means we've got a great foundation to build from. Imagine what would happen. Lean into those tough days. We all have them where all of a sudden you look up and it's 5 p.m. and you don't really know what happened. Imagine that you have one of those heavy days, whether it's that your time is fragmented in these 30-minute meeting blocks, whether it is you're deep inside a project and don't have a lot of time to look up, whatever it may be. By the time 4 or 5 o'clock comes around, with all of that switching contexts, that switching of tasks, there is a mental drain on us. So by the end of the day, when energy is low, it's not that we lack commitment, it's that our nervous systems are really just saturated from the day that we've experienced. And here's the leadership cost in that. When you are cognitively fragmented, you are emotionally thinner. And when you're emotionally thinner, you aren't really functioning at your max capacity. You can't hold space well. You react, you rush, you shorten, you move to fix problems instead of steadying, instead of holding. So I invite you to reflect on your calendar as that moral document and to reflect on your own leadership journey, your vision for who you are in your career and how you show up. If you see alignment, great. If you see dissonance, that's where the work begins. And if you don't see space, which many of us didn't, if you don't see time to pause, if you don't see time to breathe, that's not a failure, but that is the ask of leadership because building in those small moments of reflection are critically important, the work that we do. I'm going to take a look at the chat here. I saw some great comments coming in. My calendar looked like this for years. I recently joined a leadership fellowship and learned that managing my calendar is a superpower. Oh my gosh, really, I love it. Managing it instead of letting it manage me greatly impacts my capacity and how I show up as an effective leader. Love that. You can teach this course next time around. That is fantastic. Yes, Mark, I'm a project manager. I put on that project manager hat. That is how I approach it. Me and my calendar are a project to be managed. Because again, our finite resource of time, it's limited. We need to be really thoughtful about how we engage, the meetings we show up at, the value we're adding. All of that really matters over time. All of a sudden, we start having meetings that are just put on our calendars where we're not contributing. And that's not a win for anybody. Because under pressure, leaders default, control increases, agency narrows. This is really quiet work that happens in the background over time. Our buckets get depleted little by little, meeting by meeting, distraction by distraction, pulled focus by pulled focus. We may not even notice that our own engagement, how we're showing up, has started to drift. Our innovation, our creativity, our morale starts to fray. You know, AI will replace many amounts of work, lots of transactional work. We see it. It builds summaries now. It builds performance tracking. It builds polite conversations about process. It even does replace some of that surface level reflection. But what AI will never be able to get to is the human capacity to sit in the complex without collapsing, to show up in ways that matter. AI can't feel the tension in the room of a coworker or a colleague. It can't notice the subtle shift when someone says, I'm fine. You know, they're not. It can't track unconscious patterns that lead us to default to layers of control. That is all human leadership. That is communicating in ways that matter. That communication lives below the surface. It lives in context, in tone, in pace, in lived experience. It lives in the head, the heart, the body working with the mind to make sure that the work gets done. All of this requires presence. It requires us to show up well. It requires internal authority. Just like Mark said, coming at how I show up to my day as a project, something that I have influence and agency over. I control how I arrive. I control how I hold a room of people. This is my work as a leader. So my question, when pressure rises, what do you notice? What do you notice in your body? Pop into chat here. When pressure rises, when you're feeling the demands of the day, when you're feeling nervous system saturation, when you're feeling overloaded and overwhelmed, what do you see and notice about yourself? Are you speaking faster? Are you moving to fix really quickly? Does your heart start beating really quickly? Does your tone tighten? Valerie's got some tension showing up. What else do we see? You get tense, you get anxious. Yes. Stomach sinks. You're feeling that scattered mindset, Tristan. Frustration, stress, shortness. Yes, shortness in speaking to people. Many of us assume that leadership shifts when outcomes change. Really, leadership shifts when our internal state changes. The work we're doing here is focusing on noticing the moment that your internal authority begins to narrow. And I've heard it here in the chat. What are we noticing? What are we feeling? I tense up, I get a little warm, my blood pressure rises. These are signals. These are cues. These are what our body is telling us. And in our anthropologist role as leaders, our job is to notice it, to notice those signals, to realize our bucket is becoming slowly depleted, to realize I'm having that shortness of breath. My voice is becoming higher. I'm getting dysregulated. And then, of course, I'm not going to be able to show up well. I'm not going to be able curious about a project if I'm dealing with shortness of breath, being tight with people, cutting them off, feeling my body's pressure systems going online. I'm not going to be able to occupy a steady center and hold space for others. Thank you for sharing in the chat here. Yeah, my arms also feel heavy. Oh, Michael, I love when people have really specific signals. That's such a great one for you to have going forward, like cluing into that and saying, yeah, I actually really notice that my arms start feeling heavier. Now, when I know that feeling arrives, that's my signal. I've got to take a moment. I've got to shift the space, I have to step away. I have to move. I have to do something because I'm noticing that, and here's where we're going to go to next. Actually, my amygdala is becoming hijacked. And when your amygdala becomes hijacked, the neuroscience, your just thinking goes offline. So your body takes over, your thinking goes offline. It's that fight or flight. And then none of us can operate from a space of intention, integrity, internal self-authority. Noticing the signals, making sure we knew what to do to step away, and we'll get there in just a moment. That is the key of leadership work. I'm going to take us to a video about just that. This is the amygdala hijack. So it's about 1:45 seconds, and it'll just lean us into the neuroscience a little bit here on what is actually happening behind the scenes. What is running the show when pressure increases and panic starts to become triggered? I'll play that video for us now.
You've felt the sensation before. Pounding heart, shallow breath, maybe flushed face or tight shoulders. You're ready for battle, but not to think carefully. You've just clicked on an email from a customer. It's highly critical of you and, worst of all, CC'd your manager. Before you know it, you're typing a scathing reply, then spending the afternoon imagining you're about to get in big trouble. Psychologist, author, and leadership expert Daniel Goleman calls these amygdala hijacks, intense emotional reactions where you take hasty action and later regret it. The amygdala is a small organ deep within the brain that evolved to warn you of life-threatening danger, falling rocks, predators, an attacker. When it senses a threat, the amygdala prepares your body to defend itself by releasing a sudden flood of stress hormones. Goleman uses the term amygdala hijack because this stress reaction hijacks rational thought. It cuts off communication with the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain you use to spot patterns, perceive nuance in a situation, remember past experience, and consider multiple options. As a stress reaction, an amygdala hijack is spectacularly unhelpful in the modern workplace. When you're hijacked, you fixate only on the threat, and you only see one way of responding. But stop. Don't send that email. You can regain control of the prefrontal cortex by purposefully engaging the thinking part of your brain, so you can see things more clearly and take your next step thoughtfully.
That's what's happening, right? That's kind of what's running the show unconsciously behind the scenes. Our amygdala is becoming hijacked. Our system is becoming overwhelmed. Everything is shutting down. Our thinking goes offline. And then we can't show up in a way that matters for others. We can't lead well when our nervous system is overstimulated and overregulated. And there's nothing to really fix here, as we kind of chatted about. It's an observation. Getting to know those signals means that we get into a place where awareness widens our space again. And then space restores choice, brings that thinking function back online, and choice changes leadership. So how are we going to use that pressure valve to relieve pressure when it's needed? And I argue that one of the ways to do that really well is through the power of pause. And because I'm a foodie and I have to bring food into pretty much every session in some way, shape, or form, I bring us to the s'mores. S-M-O-R, s'mores. There's no E on this one, but small moments of reflection. This is hopefully something, a story, something sticky. You can see how we're going to kind of build on this in our next time together, but this is a nugget for you to take away. Kathy Engelbert, who's the former CEO of Deloitte, she schedules s'mores between meetings. She does 10 minutes between each one every day. And in those 10 minutes, she has a process. She has a protocol. She project manages her time. She says, what just happened? What am I carrying that's not mine that I can put down? And then where am I going next? And what is the tone I want to set? How do I want to arrive? And she uses these 10 minutes, these s'mores, as pivot points to regulate her nervous system, to lean into pause. Of course, if she needs a cup of tea, coffee, all of that gets built in here too. But it is an interesting way to architect your calendar, to protect some time, to build in thoughtful time for reflection. And just going back to our Slido poll, some of us may not have as much structure. We may not have as much blocked time. That's fantastic. And yet, do we build in s'mores to our day? Do we build in that critical thinking time as a leader to say, what did I hear today? What did I notice about the people, my coworkers, team members? Where do I see their stress? And how can I kind of circle back with them to have conversations? Mark, the small moments of reflection, s'more, small moments of reflection, micro boundaries. And any chance for a s'more. Why not? So how do we build in relief? How do we build in some opportunity to breathe? How do we leverage the pressure valve? We have s'mores, but another tool is to engage what Harvard research calls spacious mode. Because our attention becomes very closed off. Our thinking brain goes offline. And so our call is to slow things down, to arrive back, to believe in the power of the pause, and then to enter spacious mode. Spacious mode is where everything is expansive. We kind of get to slow down. Spacious mode is unhurried. There's this widened view of the world. Spacious mode is when you arrive and can engage with your curiosity. When you encounter what's not really predictable and you notice, interesting, curious things about your day, you're operating from a place of spacious mode. My favorite example of spacious mode is like, think of your very favorite 3, 4, 5-year-old. They exist in spacious mode. They are not hurried. They are not deadline oriented, especially if you think about them having to put their shoes on to get out for school. Oh my goodness, you will see spacious mode in full tilt at that point in life. But they're trying to figure out shoelaces, and they're trying to figure out backpacks, and they're trying to figure out why is the sun shining and what's the day. And so they're great. They're great curators of spacious mode. So I always try to think about it as tapping into my inner 3, 4, 5-year-old. That helps me enter spacious mode. And spacious mode is the opposite of the amygdala hijack. Spacious mode is where you can innovate. It's where you can be curious. It's where you can ask questions of other people. It's where you feel grounded and safe so you can arrive to hold space for others. It also leans into kind of dream visioning and childlike wonder. And peak performance doesn't come from us filling every day. It comes from us managing our calendars and managing our energy. The graphic there on the right, space creates performance. Spacious mode matters. No matter the day we face, the stresses we face, of course, they're different for all of us. But as I said, engaging that athlete mindset, so s'mores, spacious mode, and adopting an athlete mindset, these are all tools in our toolbox to negate a flooded nervous system. And what is that athlete mindset? You're thinking really thoughtfully about your energy management. Athletes, of course, they hydrate, they sleep, they train, they practice, and then they show up and perform. Then they arrive to their games, but in our case, that would be meetings. What do? Do we hydrate? Do we sleep? Do we have a sleep practice? Do we train? Do we perform? If we're giving a presentation, are we really rehearsing that out loud beforehand? Are we being thoughtful of how we're going to show up, what we want to get out of a meeting, what we want to put into a meeting? Are we building in s'mores? Because truly, our work is no different than that of an athlete. We must arrive ready to play. So with that, I just welcome the thought of an energy audit. Light, diet, movement, sleep. What do you do? What do you do to adopt an athlete mindset in your everyday routine? Do you try to get sunlight? Do you try to get movement? Do you have a sleep routine? Pop into chat. What's top of mind for folks? Pilates, love that. Amazing. Keep them coming. I'm going to pop up some examples on the right here. We've got sunlight, unplugging for the first 30 to 60 days. A lot of science behind that. Not reaching for your phone first thing can be really, really, really beneficial. Lots of water, cardio, consistent pre-sleep routine, avoiding that blue light. And then we've got lots of great examples in the chat. Pilates, biking, walking, yoga, walk. So important. And some of our best ideas actually happening while we're walking because our body's moving and we kind of get into that cadence. And then all of a sudden that spacious mode becomes accessible. Tai Chi, sleep, tennis, moving, lots of Pilates, gym, protein, love it, daily workouts. First thing, so there's no excuse. That's really great. Setting yourself up for success in the day. Fantastic. And my last one here, maybe a little bit different, but something to consider. Information diet. What are we consuming? Because online, how are we consuming? Are we blocking time to enter the news? Or are we always having information coming at us from social media, from online? Are we being really thoughtful about how our information diet is consumed? Something for us to consider as leaders. And I'll land us just for a moment on sleep. I see a couple of you flag sleep. 75% of adults who report high stress also report sleep problems. Another Harvard research study, this one's from 2016, sleeping fewer than 6 hours a night is strongly correlated with burnout at work, with reduced performance, with increased anxiety. Chronic sleep compromises our resilience, compromises our decision making, compromises our ability to regulate our emotions. So really having that sleep habit, that sleep routine, critically important. Yeah, Michael, I'm with you. Tai Chi, it sounds like a good one. To wrap us up in our time today, I wanted to leave you with a framework, and this is what I call the PrEP framework. We don't just show up in conversations, we prepare so that we can show up in a way that matters. And that PrEP framework, pause, first P, create that space, schedule the s'more, block the 10 to 15 minutes. Don't just show up, prepare to show up. R in PrEP, regulate, manage your body, manage your state, breathe, slow down, notice your signals, adopt that athlete mindset, build in routines, not just performing, you're arriving prepared to do so. So as leaders, your emotional state becomes the room's emotional state. We actually energetically feel the frequency of one another's emotions, and they will feed off that. If you are dysregulated, your team will notice, and then they will start to panic. So it's really important that we ground our nervous system before we're in spaces and places with people that we lead. The E in PrEP, empathize. So consider others. What might they be thinking or feeling? What are they caring about? What is their point of view? What resistance might be showing up within them? Communication starts with understanding, not just with speaking. And then the final P is purpose. We'll get more into this in August, but clarifying our message. What is the outcome of the interaction, of the conversation? What am I trying to influence, and how can I communicate that well? What's the one key message I want them to walk away with? If everything is important, nothing is clear, just like a calendar. All of these appointments and calendars and pings and Slack and Teams, they all get the same level of priority, then nothing's a priority. So I invite you to take this framework and think about an important conversation that's coming up for you. You may be giving a presentation, you may be meeting with a room full of people, it may be a virtual connect, maybe it's a one-on-one conversation with someone. How can you land the PrEP framework? How can you pause? How can you regulate? How can you empathize? And how can you bring your purpose to light? To really be intentional about the time. I'll leave you with that PrEP framework for today. As we come to the next session, as I said, we're going to build on what was already grounded in here. Now that we've really aligned our nervous systems, we're going to connect with others so they feel heard and seen. We're going to talk about a couple of frameworks in order to do that, how to hold space for others well. We'll then get into how to create and deliver messages clearly across conversations, meetings, presentations, you name it. We'll touch base on it all. And we're going to lean into the power of story. Most powerful words in the English language, I think, are once upon a time. We're going to use storytelling to make messages stick. And fun fact, that stick is another acronym. So that's a spoiler for what's coming. Thank you for the time today, Marissa. So sorry for going over a minute or two. Back over to you.
You are perfectly fine, Lisa. Thank you so much for this session. Do you have a moment for Q&A?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, before we get there, just a few quick reminders. Yes, this session was recorded. Be on the lookout for an email tomorrow with the link to the recording. And if today's preview sparked your interest, we encourage you to register for the full course taking place on August 20th via Zoom to dive deeper into these concepts and walk away with practical tools you can apply right away. You can also explore our full training calendar and other CPS HR consulting services at cpshr.us. And finally, we'd really appreciate it if you could complete the short survey that will pop up at the close of this session. Your feedback helps make our future webinars even better. I did post the link to where you can find more info about CPS HR and also how to register for the August 20th course in the comments. And we'll take a few quick moments for any questions. I'll take the first one or two if you guys have time to stick around. And again, thank you, Lisa, for being here today.
Thanks.
I'm sure everyone is walking away with a lot of practical tools right now.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Terry. Thank you, Charlene.
Thanks, Tristan. It's that weekend eve. We're getting there.
Yeah. Another few seconds and then we'll go ahead and get on with our day. Oh, Terry's got a question, Lisa.
Yeah, it sounds like this, like empathy is a huge part of this to correct. Yes, absolutely. And again, that starts with self. It's putting on our own oxygen masks so that we can arrive ready for others. And I think empathy, we sort of tend to think outwardly, but really we need to think inwardly first. Empathy to self, self-care, self-regulation, so that our bucket is full enough to be able to pour into others. You got it. Emotional intelligence. Absolutely.
All right, that seems to be it. So I will go ahead and let us wrap up. Thank you again, Lisa, and thank you all for being here. We hope to see you all in the August 20th class. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or reply to the email that you will get tomorrow. Thank you and have a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.
Take care.